A dangerous secret is being hidden from your soulmate. The truth about his wife is finally revealed. My beloved child, pause for one impossible moment, because what is hidden in silence often shapes the future louder than anything spoken. There is something unusual unfolding beyond what your eyes can currently recognize, and if you rush away now, you may never understand why today's message feels strangely familiar to your heart. Stay with this story until the pieces begin to connect, because the first clue is never the whole truth. Imagine standing at the edge of a path where every step forward uncovers another layer that was never meant to remain hidden forever. That is exactly where this journey begins. Somewhere, a truth has been covered by assumptions, misunderstandings, and carefully placed distractions. Not because destiny wanted confusion, but because some answers only reveal themselves when the right moment finally arrives. What if the person connected to your future has been living inside a story that looks complete from the outside while quietly missing its most important chapter? Think about that for a second. Sometimes the loudest illusion is built from ordinary days that seem perfectly normal. The strange part is this. People often search for dramatic signs while the greatest revelations arrive through the smallest details. A forgotten conversation. An unexpected silence. A smile that suddenly disappears. A feeling that refuses to leave. None of these moments seem important alone, yet together they begin to paint an entirely different picture. That picture is becoming clearer now. Not all at once, but piece by piece, exactly as it should. There is someone who believes everything around them has already been explained. They think every question has an answer and every chapter has reached its ending. Yet beneath that confidence rests an unanswered mystery waiting for daylight. The hidden truth has never been about creating fear. It has always been about awakening awareness. Because once awareness appears, nothing looks the same again. Even familiar faces begin to reveal meanings that were impossible to notice before. Perhaps you have felt an unexplainable pull toward this message today. Maybe it interrupted your routine for a reason. That happens more often than people realize. Certain moments seem ordinary until they unexpectedly become turning points. What if this is one of those moments? What if every sentence you hear from this point forward quietly prepares you to understand something that has remained invisible until now? Stay a little longer. The next layer changes everything. Far away from obvious answers, another story has been unfolding. On the surface, everything appeared peaceful. Conversations continued. Daily life moved forward. Smiles remained convincing enough that nobody thought to question them. Yet behind those ordinary moments existed a silence carrying more weight than words ever could. Silence has a remarkable habit. It protects secrets for a while, but it can never keep them forever. The remarkable thing about hidden truths is that they rarely announce themselves with noise. Instead, they whisper. They leave tiny clues scattered throughout everyday life, waiting for someone patient enough to notice them. Most people overlook these clues because they expect dramatic signs. But destiny often works differently. It invites observation before revelation. Reflection before understanding. Now consider this carefully. What if someone close to your soulmate has been protecting an image instead of protecting the truth? Not out of cruelty, but out of fear that honesty would change everything they have known. Fear has convinced countless people to delay conversations that should have happened long ago. Yet delayed truth never disappears, it only waits for the perfect moment to emerge stronger than before. And here is where the story becomes even more unexpected. The hidden reality surrounding his wife is not about appearances alone. It is about the difference between what people choose to show and what they quietly carry inside. Every relationship tells two stories, the visible one that everyone applauds, and the invisible one that only time eventually uncovers. Right now, those two stories are moving toward each other. When they finally meet, nothing remains unchanged. Take another breath and keep listening. You are still standing at the doorway, not inside the room. The biggest revelation has not arrived yet. This first chapter simply prepares your eyes to recognize what has been overlooked for far too long. Because once the next piece falls into place, even the smallest memory will suddenly make perfect sense. And when that happens, you'll realize this was never just another story, it was the beginning of a truth that had been waiting patiently for the exact right moment to be seen. A quiet shift is happening now, and this is where the story begins to reveal why every earlier clue mattered. The pieces that once seemed unrelated are slowly moving toward one another, almost as if an unseen hand has been arranging them from the very beginning. Don't rush past this moment, because the next few minutes may completely change the way you interpret everything you've heard so far. There comes a point in every journey when silence can no longer carry the weight of hidden realities. That point has finally arrived. Imagine someone waking up each morning believing they understand their own life, only to discover that the picture they trusted has always been missing a crucial detail. The surprising part isn't that the truth existed, it is that it remained unnoticed despite being quietly present all along. Have you ever wondered why certain conversations never feel complete? Why some questions receive answers that sound convincing but somehow leave your heart unsettled? Those moments are rarely meaningless. Sometimes they are gentle signals reminding us that there is still another side of the story waiting patiently behind the curtain. Stay with this message, because the curtain has only begun to move. As the hidden layers continue to unfold, something remarkable becomes impossible to ignore. Every relationship creates reflections. Some reflections reveal honesty, while others simply preserve appearances. For a long time, the world around your soulmate has accepted what could easily be seen. Few people paused long enough to notice what could only be understood through careful observation. That difference changes everything. Now imagine discovering that certain decisions were never made from complete understanding. Instead, they were shaped by assumptions, incomplete conversations, and moments where speaking honestly felt far more difficult than remaining silent. None of this happened overnight. Like a puzzle assembled one small piece at a time, today's revelation has been preparing itself through countless unnoticed moments. Here's the unexpected twist. The truth surrounding his wife is not arriving like a storm. It is arriving like sunrise. At first, only a faint light appears. Then outlines become visible. Finally, what once looked ordinary begins to reveal details that were impossible to recognize in darkness. That is how genuine understanding works. It never forces itself. It simply waits until the observer is finally ready to see clearly. Perhaps this message feels strangely personal because every listener has experienced moments when appearances hid deeper realities. That is why this story connects beyond one single person. It reminds us that clarity often arrives after patience, not before it. Wait a little longer, the next chapter carries the answer that these moments have been quietly leading toward. If this story has made you pause and reflect, perhaps someone else needs to hear it as well. You can share it with them, leave a comment about the moment that spoke to you the most, and if these journeys of mystery and hope resonate with you, subscribing simply means we'll continue exploring them together. But before moving forward, one final thought deserves your attention. What if the greatest surprise has nothing to do with exposing someone's mistakes? What if the real revelation is discovering that hidden truth has the power to restore understanding instead of destroying it? That possibility changes the entire direction of this journey. The next chapter will step beyond questions and into undeniable clarity. Every clue you've collected so far will begin connecting in ways that seem almost impossible to predict. Stay close, because the most meaningful part of this unfolding story is still waiting just beyond the next turn, and when it arrives, every earlier moment will suddenly feel as though it was leading here all along. Everything changes from this point onward, because the truth is no longer standing in the distance. It is close enough to be recognized, yet still wrapped in one final layer of uncertainty. Listen carefully, because what comes next is not the ending you may have expected, it is the beginning of a completely different understanding. As the hidden pieces settle into place, your soulmate begins noticing something impossible to ignore. Small moments that once seemed ordinary suddenly carry new meaning. A familiar expression. An unfinished sentence. A promise remembered differently than before. None of these moments create the truth by themselves, but together they illuminate a pattern that had remained invisible for far too long. Then comes the quiet realization. The story that everyone accepted without question was never the complete story. Not because anyone possessed perfect knowledge, but because every person only saw the part that was directly in front of them. The deeper reality remained beneath the surface, patiently waiting for the moment when perspective would finally replace assumption. Imagine opening a book you've read many times, only to discover an entire chapter had always been folded shut. The words were there from the beginning, yet your eyes had never reached them. That is exactly how hidden truth often reveals itself. It doesn't suddenly appear, it simply becomes visible when the right moment arrives. This is why today's message matters. The truth about his wife was never meant to become a reason for resentment or division. Its purpose is something much greater. It exposes the difference between appearance and authenticity. Every person wears a version of themselves the world easily understands, while another version remains known only through honesty, patience, and time. Eventually those two versions meet, and when they do, every unanswered question begins finding its place. Now ask yourself something. How many times have people mistaken certainty for understanding? How many times have they believed they knew the entire picture while only holding a single piece? The answer explains why destiny rarely reveals everything at once. If every secret arrived in a single moment, wisdom would never have the chance to grow. Instead, revelation comes step by step, allowing every lesson to become part of the journey instead of merely becoming information. Your soulmate is approaching that moment now. Not a dramatic confrontation. Not a sudden explosion of emotion. But something even more powerful. A calm clarity. The kind of clarity that quietly rearranges every memory, every conversation, and every unanswered feeling until they finally make sense together. When that happens, confusion loses its power. Doubt begins to fade. Even the silence that once felt heavy starts speaking with unexpected meaning. Stay with this thought for just a little longer. What seemed like an ending may actually be the doorway to a wiser beginning. Sometimes life protects people from seeing the full picture until they are emotionally prepared to understand it without losing themselves in it. That preparation is what has been happening throughout this entire story. And now one final clue before this chapter closes. The greatest secret was never simply about another person. It was about perception. Once perception changes, the entire journey changes with it. The hidden truth no longer controls the future, it becomes the lesson that guides it. That is why today's revelation carries hope instead of fear, awareness instead of confusion, and purpose instead of uncertainty. The path ahead is brighter than the path behind. The final chapters will reveal how every hidden clue, every quiet pause, and every unexpected turn has been leading toward a conclusion far greater than anyone imagined. Don't leave yet, because the most unforgettable revelation is still waiting just beyond the horizon. The final veil is beginning to lift, and this is the moment where every unanswered question starts finding its place. For so long, the story seemed to revolve around hidden secrets and quiet uncertainty. But now, something far greater is becoming visible. The truth was never racing toward chaos, it was patiently leading everyone toward clarity. Stay until the end of this chapter, because one final connection changes the meaning of everything you've heard. Think about a mirror covered with dust. The reflection never disappeared, it was only waiting to be seen clearly. In the same way, your soulmate has been looking at certain memories through layers of assumption rather than understanding. Every conversation, every pause, every unexpected feeling now begins to return with fresh meaning. Suddenly, moments that once seemed ordinary become impossible to ignore. Then comes the realization that transforms the entire journey. The hidden truth about his wife was never simply about one individual. It became a symbol of everything that can remain unseen when people stop asking deeper questions. The greatest discoveries are rarely found in dramatic moments. They appear when someone has the courage to see beyond appearances. That courage is now awakening. Notice how every clue throughout this story has pointed in the same direction. Not toward blame. Not toward conflict. But toward awareness. Awareness changes the future because it allows wiser choices to replace old assumptions. Once that happens, the path ahead no longer feels uncertain. It becomes intentional. Imagine standing before two doors. One door leads back into familiar confusion, where unanswered questions continue repeating themselves. The other opens toward honesty, wisdom, and a future built on genuine understanding. The remarkable thing is that the choice has always been there. Only now does it become visible enough to recognize. Perhaps this message arrived exactly when it needed to. Sometimes timing carries its own quiet purpose. People often believe they discover truth by coincidence, yet many of life's most meaningful moments appear precisely when the heart is ready to receive them. What once felt like random events now resemble carefully connected pieces of a much larger picture. And here's the insight that ties everything together. Hidden truths never possess their greatest power while they remain hidden. Their true power begins the moment they inspire growth, compassion, and clearer vision. That is why this journey has never been about exposing darkness. It has always been about revealing light that was waiting behind it. If this story has kept you thinking, perhaps someone else would appreciate hearing it as well. Feel free to share it with a friend, leave a comment about the moment that surprised you most, and if these cinematic journeys continue to inspire your imagination, subscribing is a simple way to join the next chapter together. Before this chapter closes, carry one final thought with you. Every mystery eventually reaches its answer. Every hidden chapter eventually opens. Every unanswered question eventually meets the right moment. And when that moment arrives, the future no longer feels like something to fear, it becomes something to embrace with confidence. The journey isn't over yet. One last chapter remains, where every thread you followed will come together in a conclusion that reveals why this story had to unfold exactly as it did. What waits ahead is not merely another revelation. It is the reason every clue has been leading you forward from the very beginning. One final connection remains, and it is closer than anyone expected. By now, every hidden clue has led to this moment, where uncertainty gives way to understanding. But before the last piece settles into place, there is something even more important to recognize. The greatest revelations are not the ones that shock us, they are the ones that quietly transform the way we see everything that came before. Picture a long hallway filled with closed doors. For years, people walked past them believing there was nothing worth discovering inside. Yet today, one of those doors slowly opens. Not with noise. Not with confusion. With calm certainty. Behind it is not another secret, but a perspective that changes the meaning of the entire journey. Your soulmate begins to realize that the truth was never hidden to create distance. It remained unseen because every chapter of life has its own perfect timing. Looking back, the signs were always there. A conversation that suddenly feels different. A memory that now carries new meaning. A silence that, in hindsight, was speaking louder than words ever could. And then comes the most unexpected realization. The story was never truly about proving who was right or wrong. It was about discovering how easily appearances can shape beliefs, while genuine understanding requires patience. The hidden truth surrounding his wife becomes only one part of a much larger lesson, a reminder that every life contains chapters no outsider can fully understand without compassion and wisdom. Take a moment and imagine how different the future becomes when decisions are guided by clarity instead of assumption. Every step feels lighter. Every question becomes less intimidating. Every memory finds its rightful place. This is the quiet power of truth. It doesn't erase the past, it gives the past its proper meaning. Now the path ahead looks completely different. What once appeared uncertain begins to reveal direction. What once felt confusing begins to reveal purpose. What once seemed like coincidence begins to resemble a carefully connected journey. This is why you were brought to this story. Not to dwell on hidden mysteries forever, but to recognize that every hidden chapter eventually leads to greater wisdom. Sometimes life allows questions to remain unanswered for a season so that, when the answer finally arrives, it has the power to shape a stronger future. As your soulmate moves forward, something remarkable happens. Instead of carrying the weight of unanswered doubts, they carry the strength of new understanding. The future is no longer controlled by what remained hidden yesterday. It is guided by what has become clear today. So hold on to this final thought. Every journey has a moment when everything suddenly makes sense. Every mystery reaches a point where the scattered pieces fit together. And every heart that remains patient long enough eventually discovers that truth has never been working against it, it has been quietly preparing it for something better. The story is now approaching its final destination. One last chapter remains, where every lesson, every clue, and every unexpected turn will unite in a conclusion that leaves no loose ends. Stay with the journey a little longer, because the ending is not about what was hidden. It is about what becomes possible once the